more in depth about scouting and what I'm looking for. I don't really want to call it a how-to because it sounds arrogant, and you know, everything I say is opinion. I mean, you can kill them sitting on a white bucket with a flannel shirt. You know, it's southeast Iowa. If you're in a tree long enough, you'll probably get a shot of the deer. I mean, they're literally everywhere. I actually saw them in the Wendy's parking lot a couple days ago. But again, not really a how-to, but how I do kind of video. Things that have led to me being more successful. Reading hot sign, spring scouting. You know, one of the reasons I really like to be out here is, number one, I love spending time in the woods. It's my favorite place to be, obviously. And this time of year, you know, you're out here alone. You're not really messing with anybody else's hunt. You might run into a couple other shed hunters or something like that, but you're not going to blow through somebody else's hunt. Plus, all the foliage is down, so all the sign from the rut or from, you know, last fall is really easy to read because it hasn't, you know, the foliage hasn't returned. So none of the scrapes, rubs, heavy trails, all those things that we'll get into haven't been covered back up by Mother Nature. So it's also a beautiful time to be in the woods. You never know what you're going to find. I'm very much a what's over the next ridge kind of guy. I like to wander. I get bored hunting the same trees over and over. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not who I am, you know. But again, I thought I would get more into, you know, the things that I'm looking for, the things that have led to me being more and more successful as a bow hunter. And I'm personally trying to raise my age class. I mean, I was called Vaughn Reaper as a joke nickname for a long time because I couldn't hold my string. I just like to shoot my bow. But, you know, as I've started to hold my string and started to learn how to read sign and actually have a plan, I've started to shoot better and better age class bucks. And that's what I moved to Iowa for, you know. Yeah, I moved here for a job, but the job was a means to live in Iowa. You know, I remember conversations with my dad and explaining to him the logistics of a 4-year draw in Iowa, but I live in Missouri, and he said, well, why don't you just move to Iowa and then you can hunt Missouri every year and you don't have to worry about the draw system. My old man was a genius. He was right. I love it here. But anyway, without getting too deep into that, I'm going to walk through some things, scrapes, rubs, buck bedding, things that I'm taking notes on while I'm out here in the spring. And then, I don't know if you can see the camera above my head, but I just planted the camera over just outside of this swamp bedding. Just what I'll do is I'll drop some really good lithium batteries in that thing, drop a cord in it, I'll hang it, and I'll leave it, and I'll let it soak, and I don't keep coming back to check it. I let it soak, and then I'll pull it right around the times other guys come out and start scouting. Obviously, you can see I had to climb the tree to hang it. That keeps it out of the line of sight, so if somebody out here shed hunting doesn't steal it. And the reason I'll pull them is, again, most guys start scouting, you know, late August, early September for an October 1st bow open. I've already done all my work. I'm done. I might come back in here maybe August, last week in August, maybe, and pull this camera. That way it doesn't get stolen, kind of take notes. What I'm looking for on the camera is, you know, obviously you want to see a mega buck, but really what I get excited about is multiple bucks. If there's, you know, 3 or 4 shooters in here that I would like to get an arrow in, and when I say shooter, that's relative. You know, any deer with a bow is a trophy. But, you know, for me, if it gets my heart pumping, I'm going to send it. Whether that be a 100-inch deer or a 160-inch deer, I live in the moment. So I decide when I see that deer if I'm gonna, you know, try to run an arrow through it. But anyway, I'm starting to ramble. This video is less montage and actually more content, I guess. Anyway, follow along. I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Well, on the board today, a couple years old looks like. Everyone counts. Everyone counts. So an absolute textbook example of buck bedding. So it's open timber back behind the camera. When I say open, I mean it's probably going to be thicker in the fall when the foliage returns, but when it's dropping. Heavy trail leading in. Large historical rub here. There's nothing fresh here, really, to be honest with you. So it's still being used. That's obvious to me. I just don't know by what caliber of a buck, but he'll walk in with the wind in his face, walk in, turn around, bed down with the wind now blowing over his back, looking up this way, and he's sunk down just a hair so that his body is hidden, but he can see up over this edge. This is the kind of thing I'll mark. Again, I'd like to see that rub be fresher, or you know, there's another historical rub here. There's one on the back side of this tree that you can't see, but I'll mark it. I try to mark as many of these as I can. When I find concentrated buck bedding, multiple buck beds in a, you know, let's say the size of a football field, that's when I'll really kind of zone in on a piece. But this is an example, you know, plenty of cover behind him. Again, with the wind blowing over his back, an escape route here, an escape route there, obviously an escape route here. Yeah, you could walk right by this bed. He could be laying right here. You wouldn't be able to see him. Kind of bulletproof. But again, I'll turn my tracker on. I'll walk the 3 or 4 trails coming out of here. And, you know, in the fall, if I decide to set up on it, I'll try to figure out which wind works best for that day, set up on that trail, or that trail, and hope that, you know, I got 3 chances of being right. 1 in 3 is not bad, you know, but again, this is the kind of stuff I'm looking for. So one of my favorite things to know and locate and mark are scrapes. I'm sure most of you know what scrapes are, but for those of you that don't, basically, anytime there's what they call a licking branch hanging over underneath it, generally that licking branch will be broken at the top. My antlers rubbing up in here. What they're doing is rubbing their scent glands here on this this branch, and then basically, long story short, peeing over their tarsal glands to put scent into the ground. It's kind of a communication post. What we have right here is it turns into swamp back here. It's on the back side of a duck marsh. It opens up into this. It's very high stem count, kind of willows all around here, and it opens up in the middle right here to what most people would refer to as the staging area. Basically, the deer work out of the bedding, spend time in this staging area. They're social animals, so they'll spend time in this staging area. They'll check these scrapes to see who's been in the area, that type of thing. These kind of things get bow hunters excited. But, you know, there's one here. There's an even larger one right here that are still being worked. I mean, it's March 25th, I believe. So they'll work them for quite a while, and then you'll slowly see them start to close back up as the vegetation comes. But they'll always be here, and they'll keep hitting them. I bet if I put a camera on this tree, you know, does, smaller bucks, bigger bucks, generally at night, and we'll get to that in a second, but we'll come into the staging area, kind of check and see who's in the area, and then go on about their business as they work towards crop fields, or maybe there's oak trees over here on this ridge over here in October when the acorns start falling. Back in the day, I probably would have set up on this, you know, and you could probably, I mean, if you're trying to kill a deer, this is a great thing to do. Set up over scrapes, hot scrapes, fresh scrapes, scrapes that have obviously just been worked. But it feels like I'm too far from the swamp for a larger caliber buck. You could set up here and, you know, arrow a doe, or maybe get an arrow into you know, a 2-year-old buck or something like that. I'm not saying you couldn't ever get lucky and have one come out a little bit early, but, and only because I know this because I've pre-scouted this area, there's basically a line of scrapes that runs back here, and I'll show you guys those. The ones on the very edge of the swamp, those are the ones that get me excited. I know these are here. I'll follow it all through. I'll mark all of the scrapes all the way back to the bedding area. When I come in to hunt it, you know, if the wind's blowing this way, I'll loop way out there. I won't come anywhere near this. I'll loop way around and set up on the scrapes near bedding so that I can catch those bucks coming out of that thick swamp while in daylight. You set up here, you could be 45 minutes out of the game. They might come through here, but you might already be out of the tree halfway to the truck. And now you've left your scent on the ground, and now we're in trouble. They're smart enough to know that. Basically, you know, a 1.5-year-old buck is kind of like, for lack of a better term, your kid in junior high trying to figure out his first thing with girls. 2.5-year-old buck is kind of maybe in his early 20s, starting to get the hang of it, but he's still pretty dumb, you know, still a little reckless. Getting to that 3.5-year-old, you're pushing your, you know, your 30-year-old man, you know, starting to slow down a little bit, but still kind of athletic, still thinks he can play high school football, that kind of thing. And then when you start getting into those 4.5, 5.5, now we're dealing with smarter animals that have been through the rodeo. They're in really no big hurry to do anything except survive. That's it. But anyway, we'll walk these scrapes back, and I'll show you the ones leading back into bedding and the ones that really get me excited. And I'm also going to plant a camera back there, so let's head that way. This is closer to what I'm looking for. Now, these aren't worked as hard. Haven't been worked in a while, actually. But you'll see there's a scrape here. As I said, broken licking branch here. Now here's what I like about this, is it leads directly out of that thick bedding. This is a much deadlier spot. Although that large truck hood size scrape that's up there seems really enticing. That smaller scrape tells me more, personally. Now, again, this is a rule of thumb, but again, another one here. I've got a smaller one here. I'm gonna bet, and we'll just follow it to see if there's one actually on the edge here. Let's see. See, this is more like it. Again, they're looking to survive. They're going to stay in the thickest thing where they feel the safest for the longest amount of time as they can. Yeah, Yahtzee. All right. That is bueno. You know, I would venture to say somewhere in here on a high spot, I'll probably find a bed. I'm not going to drag you guys all through that. Plus, I don't want to drop my camera in the swamp. But, yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking for. So, in this scenario, I wouldn't want to push in too far. I think I would set up on those, calling that close enough and hope that he made it to me in daylight. But, again, that scrape excites me more than that huge scrape that I was showing you guys earlier. Anyway, love scrapes. One of my favorite things to hunt, especially when they're fresh, because it tells you it happened right now.